And we're back. Welcome to your go-to show for health and wellness. And I have a question for you, Jonathan.
Okay.
What kind of hair day are you having today?
Well, I'm growing it out, and it doesn't stay back anymore. So here's what's going to happen. It's going to do this. So
And how does that make you feel?
it bugs me sometimes, but it's kind of fun sometimes too.
Nice.
So I'm just going to keep it. No, I'm going to have this, and it's going to fall down, and whatever, right? Nobody cares.
I mean, dude, at least you have hair.
And that's true. Although when I was 30, I thought I was losing my hair.
Yeah?
It was 18 years ago. I was wrong.
Alrighty, so what are we talking about?
So we said that we were going to talk about how to take that meditative state, the mindful state, that internal awareness state, and how do you take that and live with it in normal, walking, everyday life?
Right. So what's the answer?
You don't. No, you can do it. You're screwed. You can't do it. You live on a mountaintop with other monks. Well, I think that's where we would start, because that might be someone's first thought is, hey, if I just lived around everyone that was just like me, life would be so much easier.
Well, I can attest to the fact that I lived in an ashram for 3 years, which is a spiritual community.
Wow.
Focused on yoga and meditation. And it actually does not create a space away from the reality and struggles of your life. It intensifies the realities and struggles of your life.
In what way?
Because you're living in a shared environment with people who are working through and processing their stuff. And it's just very intense.
Wow. Were you literally intense? I'm just kidding.
I was sometimes in tense states.
Wow. I meant in camping tents.
Oh, no. No.
Like a yurt or something.
No.
No?
It was a real building.
Okay. Well, so how would you do it? How would we take that? How would you describe it? Inner awareness, what do we want to label it?
Well, I mean, I guess in my opinion, what the first thing that would be the most important would be working on developing a kind and loving relationship with ourselves, because the reality is that we have all sorts of messy things going on, past traumas that we all are carrying around in our bodies, different emotional states that are maybe not preferable that come up a lot of the time. Okay. So if we're going to be able to carry that connection, we have to be gentle and kind with ourselves. Otherwise, we're going to be constantly fighting against that reality and trying to project something that's different outwards.
Okay. That makes sense to me.
So loving kindness towards ourselves.
Always a good thing.
How do we do that?
Well, I would go back, think to the ideas behind mindfulness itself, which is non-judgment.
But how do you, there's probably people that are watching that are like, well, how the hell do I not judge?
Stop it!
Dude, I love that video. Check it out. What's the name of that video?
Is there a video?
Yes.
What are you talking about?
Oh, dude, it's on YouTube. It's Bob,
I thought I just made that up.
Bob Norwell or something like that, and he does this video that's this woman who says she's afraid of being buried alive in a box. Yeah. And she goes to see him for some therapy. He says he only does therapy for 5 minutes, and it's $5 for 5 minutes.
Okay.
So he says, okay, so what are you here for? And she says she's afraid of being buried alive in the box. And he says, well, stop it!
First of all, we just gave him a promo, right? Whoever that is. But I didn't know that, so,
But I agree.
I'm
but
stealing
maybe
someone's shtick.
A little more gently.
So okay, so how? First of all, they have to be in that state or be aware of the state. And okay, so you want to love yourself. What else could they do to maintain that state, to be in the state when they're going about their everyday life?
Well, I think it's about that's why I like to say start with 3 conscious breaths, because you're going to lose the state, and the easiest way to get back to it is through the breath. So just coming back, reminding yourself throughout the day. Now they have apps that can send you like a reminder. They now have like that Apple Watch thing that tells you when you should meditate. It's kind of cool. And then it shows you how to breathe. It's kind of cool.
I love that we have watches to show us how to breathe. We've come so far as a creature.
Oh, my Lord.
Oh, wait a second. Gotta breathe. I have to breathe right now. I have to stop overthinking. Although I do tell clients that. I mentioned the idea of being in suggestible states, which to me blends into what we're talking about, in that a lot of times, well, all of us sometime, but some people get into these states more often than others, that they're just absorbing everything that happens around us. When we're overwhelmed, when we have the message units up to here, that we just take everything in. And you could have a chime go off and say, breathe. We actually have told people, we've been taught to tell people in hypnosis to have a chime go off every hour and say, count yourself out of hypnosis in natural hypnosis that we get in, and say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, eyes open, wide awake. So you be more conscious, more aware. And to me, that's also a definition of, last time we talked about mindfulness. To me, the one way of thinking about mindfulness is if we have our conscious mind, which is like maybe at best 10%, and we have this huge unconscious mind, like an iceberg beneath the surface. If our conscious mind, consciousness or whatever is maybe at best 10%, being present, being mindful expands our conscious awareness and actually goes into unconscious thought. So we can actually have this metacognition. So when we're in those situations and living our life, we can be aware of our thoughts and not necessarily judge them, although you might want to judge, criticize, or think before you speak, but be aware of your thinking. Sort of the metacognition. And then you're actually expanding your consciousness, expanding your conscious awareness, expanding your consciousness into your unconscious behaviors, making your unconscious behaviors and programming more conscious.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
Then you don't react unconsciously, which is all that stuff and like the Gestalt thing where people will say things like, boy, he really overreacted when I said, I didn't like the lemon bars that, that he brought.
That
or
really
whatever.
hurt my feelings.
Yeah, like he exploded about the lemon bars.
I'm still feeling it.
Yeah. Well, it's not about the lemon bars. It's about all these things that he or she was thinking about when you criticize the lemon bars. It's like all the times that they just didn't do the job right, and then it all came out in the, it's like that. Just let go of the lemon bars, people. It's not about the lemon bars.
And take a couple deep breaths.
And take some deep breaths. But that's what it is. It's counting yourself out of hypnosis and this natural hypnosis that we get into, and having that metacognition and just being aware of what's actually happening external to you, and what are your thoughts saying. Just take a step back. And where are these thoughts coming from so you don't freak out over somebody's criticism of your lemon bars. I gotta let that go.
Did that really happen to you?
No, it didn't. I've never made lemon bars in my life. Although they're delicious. And I will probably have one this holiday season.
Well, I think you should.
I made sandbakels yesterday.
What's that?
It's a Norwegian called a sand cake. It's a cookie. It's a sugar cookie. Anyway, if someone criticizes those things, I will be fine.
In all seriousness,
yes,
I think that what you're saying is really true, and this is what I try and do with the people that I work with, is to begin recognizing the thoughts that we have on a daily basis.
Yep.
And we do that actually through this meditation and breath awareness process. So it's about creating a space between ourselves and those thoughts, so that instead of being like in the middle of that river, getting swept away by everything, we sort of are on the outside watching.
Yep.
And then you get to see what are the habitual thoughts that you have all the time, and then you get to choose differently, right?
I love that. Yeah, when we're the witness, as they often or sometimes say in meditation, when we're just that person observing those thoughts, so that we realize that, one, we're not the thoughts, Those are oftentimes the egoic things that's going on in the criticism and the old programming. When we step back and we observe those thoughts and we're the witness, we can then choose. And I often tell people, in fact, there's an app for that or a track for that, about that words are spells we cast. So before we say something, what if what you said were an actual literal spell? Like, ask yourself, why am I saying this?
Yeah.
Is it because it might make somebody laugh? I would say do it if it's not at somebody's expense. If it's to inform them about something, possibly. If it's to criticize, ask yourself, who benefits by my saying this? Does anyone?
That's
You're just
a
taking a step
really
back.
important lesson, I think, for people nowadays.
Especially, I think, during the holidays,
Yeah.
where
When you're around family,
discussions will
getting
come up,
triggered.
political things, who knows? Yep.
Yeah.
So being mindful about not only what we're doing, how we're feeling, what we're thinking, but the externalizing of those things by what we're saying and as well. So
Yeah, but that only happens, I think, through this practice that
Yep.
you root within yourself on a daily basis. Like I said, 2 to 5 minutes a day,
Yep.
starting off, but through that practice is where you get in. Most people don't have enough space between the trigger and then the response, right? It's
Right.
just
Yep.
what we want to do is we want to create that space where you feel it. And that's the hardest part, is that one of the reasons that we act the way that we do is because we're so uncomfortable with the feelings that are coming up inside of us that it's like, holy shit, I got to get rid of this, right? So then we either like fling it back on somebody else,
Yep.
right? Or we, distract ourselves in one of the 10 million ways there is available to distract yourself, right?
Yeah.
But through this practice, you actually then have this space, and you now have the courage to sit with some of that discomfort.
Yep.
And you find that this too is just transitory, right? Like, because emotions, I think they have like a lifespan of something like 1.5 to 4 minutes.
Right.
If they're able to go
Yep.
through their full expression.
Yep.
But they never, like, for so many of us, they never go through their full expression because it comes up, it's like, and then we do this, and then it just like gets stuck, right? So then we're like walking around with like these layers of like 20, 50, 70 years of compacted, stuck, stagnant emotions clogging up our system.
Well, and the old adage, and I don't know if this came out in the 60s, but the idea of that you must express everything, nope, you don't have to. You can note it, you can notice your patterns, you can notice the emotions that are coming up, but you don't have to express all of your emotions. You don't have to. It's the difference between reacting versus responding.
Right.
So when you take that moment of somebody says something, does something, and it's like, oh, it triggers that thing in you, right?
Maybe rage, right?
Maybe
you, like,
rage.
feel this rage.
Yeah.
You don't have to respond ragefully. You
No.
can just breathe into and allow
Yeah.
that rage to. And oftentimes I find with like some of those more uncomfortable or scary emotions, I mean, for us, anger is a huge scary emotion. I feel like as a society, even though we project it everywhere.
Yeah. We've mastered it.
But I just feel like, fuck, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. I'll say something and you'll pick it up.
All right.
Going back to the responding versus reacting, so that if we have that thing coming up, instead of just reacting with anger, the rage, the whatever, you can just hold on, like they say sometimes, count to 10 or whatever, and then respond with a more logical response, maybe no response at all, maybe a smile. Sometimes I'll tell people, if somebody says something or does something that you think is whatever, you view it as negative or hurtful or whatever, instead of getting angry at them, see that aspect of them. This is a little trick I thought was helpful for people. That aspect of them as like a child. Would you get angry at a little infant for screaming or for pooping or whatever? No, because it's just they haven't learned that yet. Well, we're all learning different things, right? I'm working on stuff. There's some ways where I'm not the best at this or that. And if you look at that one quality, maybe in other areas they're brilliant and they're genius, but maybe that one aspect, maybe it's political or whatever it is over the season, you just disagree. It's like maybe in that one they just don't get it. And just give them that space as you would a child, because maybe they're working on that. Even if it just helps you to get through it. And you just give them the space, just kind of smile like, okay, that's different. They'll either change it or they won't. They'll either notice it or they won't. And in NLP, we would say people are not their behaviors. So would you want to be judged for your one behavior that you did at one time that was bad or whatever.
Right.
It's like, no, you're more than that. Well, everyone else is more than that as well. So
I love that. I totally agree. And then I remembered.
all right, good. That's how it works.
So also what I have discovered is that a lot of times within these like super uncomfortable emotions, if we can be present with them and let them move through us, there's actually like some pearl of wisdom or insight a lot of the times that exists within it. So that emotion is coming up for a reason, because there's something that we either need to see, respond to, take care of within ourselves, I just think that if we can take the time to just be present and in that moment, and then what I usually do is have people breathe through it and then just ask, what is here? What do I need to learn from this experience?
I love that.
What is this trying to show me? What am I not seeing clearly? And then what happens is that very first thing that pops into your mind is the answer, and it's like profound.
I love it. And I love the pearls of wisdom. There was sometimes I've used in hypnosis sessions the idea of when an oyster gets a little like grain of sand in there and it's a little annoyance. How does it deal with the annoyance? It builds something around it, and that something becomes a pearl. So when you put a little annoyance and you poke, if you deal with that and you acknowledge it, not just stuff it down and react to it, if you respond to it and ask about the learning, then that can be a pearl of wisdom. And it's like, here's your gift. This thing that you were holding on to and developing and nurturing and making into this pearl, if you're aware, boom, here you go. Yep. And maybe that's something we could all do during the holiday season.
I agree.
So
I think if I was to wrap it up right now,
okay,
what I would say is that I think that this show is a perfect illustration of what we were meaning to talk about, which is how do you stay in this deep connected, state and also be in the world? Well, as you can see, we're not perfect. We're not even that pretty, but like, I just feel like it's the crazy outbursts. It's it's everything. Like, we tend to have this idea that like if you're spiritual, it has to be like nice and shiny and perfect, and you can't say a swear word or do anything like that, right? Yeah. I think that it's actually being able to sit in the middle of all of that as it is, accepting it as it is, in a space of openness and love.
End scene. Bye-bye.
Bye.